On the 8th of August, 2000, a typically calm day in Beckley, West Virginia, was abruptly shattered by a perplexing enigma. Natasha Alex Carter, a lively 7-year-old, and her 41-year-old mother, Susan Carter, inexplicably disappeared. Their abrupt absence created a profound and disturbing void, entirely devoid of immediate clues. This baffling case would cause immense distress to a family and perplex law enforcement for almost a quarter century. It ultimately culminated in a deathbed confession that led to the somber discovery of their remains, finally bringing a heartbreaking yet decisive end to over 2 decades of agonizing uncertainty and exhaustive searching. The immediate backdrop to Susan and Alex's abrupt disappearance was an intensely hostile custody dispute between Susan and Alex's biological father, Rick Lafferty. Tensions between the parents had reached an exceptionally dangerous level. Accounts indicated that Susan had chillingly warned Rick during their bitter disagreement that he would never see his daughter again, a statement that, in hindsight, would cast a long and ominous shadow over the entire investigation for many years. Adding another layer of complexity to the situation, Susan had recently moved to reside with her new husband, Larry Webb, at his Beckley home. This particular detail immediately prompted crucial questions for both investigators and the wider community. How could a mother and child simply disappear without a shred of evidence from what should have been the security of their own residence? Was someone known and trusted by them, perhaps even within their new household, responsible for their vanishing? For Rick Lafferty, the emotional impact was both profound and instantaneous. He felt as though his beloved daughter had simply ceased to exist. He remembered her making no phone calls or any attempts to communicate with him or their extended family. Days agonizingly prolonged into weeks, then into months, yet initial search efforts yielded no answers, only a deepening sense of emptiness. Alex and Susan appeared to have completely vanished, leaving no physical evidence or logical explanation behind. Early in the investigation, public and even official suspicions frequently centered on Susan herself. Given her notably difficult relationship with Rick and her recent relocation, many speculated that Susan might have deliberately taken Alex and fled West Virginia to avoid the ongoing custody proceedings. Rick vividly recalled his deep frustration with the Wyoming County Sheriff's Department, who initially dismissed his concerns, steadfastly insisting Alex was merely with her mother. He recounted the sheriff admitting, "Well, I don't know where her mother is," to which Rick pointed out the stark paradox. To me, that's the very definition of missing, is if you don't know where someone is. Despite Rick's urgent appeals for a more thorough inquiry, a felony warrant for kidnapping was ultimately issued for Susan on the 13th of November, 2000. The FBI, at one juncture, even publicly warned that Susan might change her appearance and use the alias Susan G.Y. Carter Webb to evade capture. At a public FBI press conference, a tearful Rick implored desperately for his daughter's safe return, expressing his profound desire to simply have her back home, regardless of the circumstances or the path that led her there. However, a critical piece of information provided by Alex's grandmother, Shirley Day, subtly contradicted the theory that Susan had abducted her. Day vividly remembered Alex expressing fear of her mother during the intense custody battle. Alex had even testified in court, explicitly stating that she was afraid of her mother and did not wish to live with her. Day recalled telling Alex, "I wish things was different for you." And Alex, with a heartbreakingly resigned tone, responding, "Well, my mom, it's all right." Rick firmly believed Alex had likely disappeared months before the 8th of August missing date displayed on posters. Noting Susan's suspicious failure to appear for a subsequent court hearing, which consequently resulted in Rick being granted full custody. He feared, however, that by that point it was already tragically too late to intervene. For more than 2 decades, the disappearance of Susan and Alex Carter persisted as one of West Virginia's most baffling and emotionally painful cold cases. Investigators pursued countless potential leads, conducted numerous interviews with anyone who might have had contact with the pair, and periodically revisited the case files, but every investigative path consistently led to a dead end. Without physical remains, a clear crime scene, or definitive forensic evidence pointing to foul play, the complete truth remained frustratingly out of reach, serving as a constant source of agony for the family. Throughout these agonizing years, Rick Lafferty's unwavering resolve to find his daughter never faltered, even as hope diminished for many others and the case gradually faded from public consciousness. This case went cold so many times that I almost lost hope several times, Rick admitted, reflecting on the arduous journey filled with setbacks. Yet, he offered a powerful and poignant message to others enduring similar plights. I can tell anybody that's in my position, just never give up. Never give up hope of finding your child. Rick remained profoundly convinced he knew who was accountable for his family's disappearance, but struggled to persuade authorities to seriously investigate his suspicions, often feeling his concerns were dismissed. Undeterred, he understood that sometimes all it takes is one person in the right place to change everything. He persisted tirelessly until he finally found that crucial individual, FBI Special Agent Jennifer King. When the U.S. Marshal Service brought the missing person case to the FBI's attention, Rick felt that Agent King was the only one who genuinely listened to his long-held fears and theories. Agent King then made a personal and professional commitment. She wouldn't rest until Alex was found. With crucial assistance from other dedicated law enforcement personnel, she infused new energy and resources into the stagnant investigation, rekindling the fragile hope of finally uncovering what had truly happened to Alex and Susan. In December 2021, over 21 years after their vanishing, the case experienced a significant and welcome revitalization. The FBI Pittsburgh office announced renewed efforts to locate Susan and Alex, offering a substantial $10,000 reward for any information leading to a resolution. This initiative generated fresh public and media attention, and vital age progression photos, meticulously created by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, depicted what Alex and Susan might look like at that time, giving a new visual presence to the long-missing pair. Crucially, Rick's long-held suspicion regarding Susan's new husband, Larry Webb, began to gain considerable official weight. Rick had suspected Webb in Alex's disappearance for a prolonged period, often feeling his concerns were unheeded. Now, the FBI shared this suspicion and executed 2 highly anticipated search warrants at Webb's home. During an August 2023 search, a critical and chilling discovery was made. Officers located a bullet lodged within a remodeled bedroom wall, alongside discernible traces of blood. Forensic testing swiftly confirmed that the DNA found on the bullet matched Alex's DNA, leading to the chilling and undeniable realization that a violent act had highly likely occurred inside the very residence where they were last seen. Webb's caregiver, Terry Lilly, who had intimate knowledge of the home, recounted the details of the searches that led to this startling find, emphasizing the significance of the evidence uncovered behind the bedroom wall. Lilly explained, they had taken a section of wall out in the time before and came back months later and said that, after DNA testing, they had found a bullet in the wall and blood that had dripped down into the base of the wall. Tragically, Lilly passed away just days after providing this key interview. In addition to the compelling DNA evidence, investigators gathered crucial witness statements, further strengthening the accumulating body of evidence against Webb. One neighbor, whose name was not disclosed, had moved to Kyle Lane in 1999 and claimed to have seen a young girl at Webb's house during the summer of 2000. Although he only saw her on one occasion, he became highly suspicious a year later upon noticing a missing child poster in the neighborhood. In 2021, upon learning about the renewed investigation into missing persons, he firmly believed the child he had seen was Alex Carter. The neighbor also recalled observing another woman at Webb's house shortly after Susan and Alex disappeared, suggesting a timeline that pointed directly to Webb's involvement. This new testimony proved to be a significant breakthrough for detectives, directly refocusing their investigation on Webb. When questioned about the additional evidence leading to Webb's 2023 indictment, authorities remained cautious due to the ongoing nature of the investigation, confirming only DNA evidence and witness statements without divulging specific details at that juncture. Despite Webb's advanced age and reported dementia, which he allegedly exploited by frequently claiming memory loss to evade questioning, Suspicions continued to mount against him. He persistently professed deep affection for both Susan and Alex, vehemently denying any involvement in their disappearance, and insisted he had searched for them over the years. He even claimed to have contacted police and undergone a polygraph test, maintaining the results were never questionable. "I don't know. I swear, I don't know. I don't have any idea what happened to her," he repeatedly asserted, though his caregiver warned that his recollection might be unreliable due to his medical condition. The FBI, recognizing the intensifying focus and the compelling new evidence, increased the reward for information from $10,000 to $20,000, signaling the heightened priority of the case. Then, a pivotal and long-awaited announcement occurred. After 23 long and agonizing years, Susan Carter was no longer considered a suspect in Alex's kidnapping. Tony Rausa of the FBI openly admitted that mistakes had been made in the investigation at the outset, and that they were reviewing these initial missteps. This significant shift in the official narrative validated Rick's long-held convictions and finally allowed the investigation to pivot completely to the strong possibility of foul play involving Webb. In October 2023, 2 months after the last search warrant, it was tragically confirmed that Alex had indeed been murdered in her bedroom at Webb's Kyle Lane home. Webb, then in his 80s, was finally indicted on the 24th of October, 2023, facing grave murder charges for the disappearances of Susan and Alex. Raleigh County Prosecuting Attorney Ben Hatfield expressed confidence in the case, despite Webb's declining health and the anticipated legal hurdles associated with obtaining medical clearance for his arrest. The grand jury had meticulously reviewed the evidence and formally requested the indictment. Webb's quickly worsening health continuously delayed his official arrest until April 2024. This occurred even though persistent attempts were made to speed up the legal proceedings, including visits to various nursing homes where he was residing. However, during one of these crucial visits, a vital and unforeseen breakthrough transpired. On the 24th of April, 2024, Special Investigator Jeff Shoemate, alongside a retired chief of detectives from the Beckley City Police Department, went to the Hilltop Nursing Home where Webb was staying. In a chilling and remarkably detailed discussion, Webb delivered a complete admission of guilt. He confessed to shooting Susan Carter after accusing her of taking money from his home. The resulting disagreement tragically led to her demise. Webb then admitted to the cold-blooded act of shooting Alex to eliminate the sole witness, thereby ensuring his crime would remain undiscovered. According to his horrific admission, he kept their bodies in his home's basement overnight before burying them together, still dressed, in a shallow grave located in the woods on his property over the subsequent 2 evenings. With the confession finally obtained, law enforcement officials were immediately determined to retrieve Alex's remains and facilitate her return to her father. However, Webb's rapidly declining health and memory still presented a challenge, impeding efforts to precisely locate the burial site. In an extraordinary demonstration of unwavering commitment and strong community solidarity, neighbors Grant and Tammy Newhouse, who own New Horizons Landscaping, generously offered their time and heavy machinery to aid with the excavation. Rick Lafferty recalled Agent King's urgent appeal to the Newhouses. "We need to know if you're willing to excavate today, right now." The Newhouses promptly mobilized, dispatching 2 of our best guys, Ty Walker and Josh Poe, their most proficient excavator operators, to the location, and within 45 minutes, they had commenced digging. They meticulously searched through Webb's backyard, systematically exploring row by painstaking row. Their exhaustive efforts ultimately yielded success. On the 11th of April, 2024, after only 2 days of intensive searching, the bodies believed to be Alex and Susan Carter were uncovered. Rick Lafferty promptly received a text message from Jennifer King relaying the incredible news. And then Jennifer yelled, "We got him! We found him!" Rick emotionally described the profound impact of that moment, stating, "And there wasn't a dry eye on this property." The revelation was profoundly bittersweet, marking the definite conclusion of a 24-year search for answers. Tragically, just a few hours before the discovery, Webb died while incarcerated at Mount Olive, West Virginia, due to what police characterized as a medical incident. He was pronounced deceased at Montgomery General Hospital. Webb's medical emergency began around 10:30 a.m. on the 11th of April, 2024, only a few hours after the remains were found in his backyard. This meant he evaded facing the full legal consequences of his dreadful actions in court. For Rick Lafferty, the discovery unleashed a torrent of complex emotions. Immense relief that his daughter had finally been found, yet profound sorrow regarding the devastating circumstances of her passing. He fondly recalled moments of carrying Alex as a child, his mother once commenting, "You're gonna carry her till her feet hit the ground," to which he lovingly replied, "Well, yeah, if she wants me to, I will." His steadfast conviction that one day she would return home had ultimately been realized, albeit in the most heartbreaking way imaginable. As this agonizing case finally reaches its end, there's a glimmer of hope that Rick and the Carter family can find some degree of peace, knowing that Alex and her mother can now finally be laid to rest, providing a measure of closure to a decades-long nightmare.
One ordinary evening, a woman left work and disappeared into thin air under circumstances that quickly began to seem anything but ordinary. The police launched an investigation and soon unearthed a series of disturbing clues that pointed to something far more sinister. But despite their early momentum, the case would remain unsolved for a staggering 25 years until an unforeseen twist finally brought long-awaited answers. Kim Langwell was born on the 24th of December, 1965, in Houston, Texas. She grew up there with her parents and younger sister, in a warm circle of friends who always admired her fierce determination. That drive only grew stronger when, at 18, Kim became a mother to her daughter, Tiffany. Shortly after Tiffany's birth, her father left, leaving Kim to raise her child alone. Determined to create a better future, Kim relocated to the small town of Beaumont, hoping for a fresh start. Life was difficult at first. Kim often worked 2 or 3 jobs at a time to support herself and her daughter. But with time and relentless effort, she secured a solid position at a nearby oil refinery. The job not only offered stability, it also brought Ken into her life. The two hit it off, began dating, and eventually got engaged, hopeful about the life they were building together. On the 9th of July, 1999, 34-year-old Kim had plans to enjoy dinner at a restaurant with Ken and her 15-year-old daughter. Her workday was expected to end at 5 p.m., giving her enough time to get home and prepare for the outing. Around 5:15, Kim phoned Tiffany to confirm the dinner plans. She mentioned she had a few quick errands and might be running a little late. By 6:30 p.m., Ken had arrived at Kim's home, but there was still no sign of her. He and Tiffany tried calling, but she didn't answer, which was highly unusual. As more time passed with no word, Ken's concern grew. Finally, around 10 p.m., he decided to go looking for her. He retraced the route she would have taken from work to home, made stops at nearby stores, and checked places she might have visited. Nothing. Then he spotted her car parked outside a pharmacy, but Kim was nowhere in sight. He searched the surrounding area, hoping she was nearby, but she wasn't. Initially, Ken tried to rationalize her absence. Maybe she changed her plans. Maybe she met up with a friend and left her car there. It didn't quite add up, but he convinced himself she was okay and returned home. The next morning, Ken drove back to the pharmacy and found the car still sitting there, untouched. Kim hadn't returned home overnight. She hadn't contacted anyone. And now, fear began to replace confusion. Ken called the police. Detectives wasted no time and began with Kim's vehicle. There were no visible signs of foul play inside, no blood, no signs of a struggle. But one discovery stood out. Her cell phone had been left behind. Investigators then spoke with Tiffany, who told them Kim had planned to visit a man named Terry after work. Though they had ended a long-term relationship about 6 months earlier, Kim and Terry had remained in occasional contact. That evening, he had asked her to help him with a small task, holding up shelves while he mounted them. Tiffany recalled calling Terry the night Kim went missing. He said she had only stopped by briefly, then left. But when police began speaking with Kim's friends, they uncovered a troubling history. Early in their relationship, Terry seemed like a good guy. But things quickly changed. He became possessive, demanding to know Kim's whereabouts at all times. He picked fights over minor issues and insisted she obey him. Eventually, Kim had enough and ended the relationship. But leaving Terry wasn't simple. He swung between promises of change and threats of violence. Despite this, Kim managed to break things off but she never felt completely safe. She continued limited contact with him, fearing what he might do if she cut him off entirely. Friends told police that shortly before the breakup, Terry had physically assaulted Kim, once choking her during an argument. Afterward, Kim confessed to them that she feared he might one day kill her. In fact, she once half-joked that if she ever vanished, they should check Terry's backyard first. Given this background, and the fact that Kim visited Terry right before disappearing, police turned their focus to him. When questioned, Terry denied any involvement. He maintained that Kim dropped by briefly to help with the shelves and left. He claimed that later that night he went to a local bar. His story gave him no clear alibi during the critical window of time when Kim vanished. Investigators obtained a warrant to search his property, but they came up empty. No sign of Kim, no suspicious evidence, nothing to confirm their growing suspicions. Forensic experts combed through Kim's car too, but again, nothing surfaced. Then another name entered the picture: Frank, Kim's boss at the refinery. According to Kim's friends, Frank had been harassing her for months. He was married, but that didn't stop him from pursuing her. He wrote her over 100 letters expressing his feelings, hoping she'd reciprocate. But Kim didn't. She felt uncomfortable, even frightened. Fearing things might escalate, she gave the letters to her friends for safekeeping in case anything ever happened to her. She told them Frank had taken too slowly driving past her house, sometimes parking across the street and watching from his car. Oddly, Frank's creepy behavior didn't change even though he knew Kim was in a relationship with Ken, who also worked at the refinery. When police interviewed Frank, he played down everything. He claimed he barely had any feelings for Kim and denied ever writing her letters, despite investigators holding the letters in their hands. Frank also tried to establish an alibi, producing a store receipt from 6:56 p.m. and pointing to a poker game he hosted later that evening. But there was still a significant gap, over an hour, between when Kim left work and when his alibi began. Still, there was no hard evidence connecting Frank to the disappearance. Police tried to trace Kim's final movements using surveillance footage and phone records, but came up short. The last known activity was her call to Tiffany. Meanwhile, volunteers joined massive search efforts across the city. Flyers were posted, news outlets reported the story, and the public was asked for tips, but nothing broke the case. Suspicions around Terry only deepened. Kim's sister paid him a visit shortly after the disappearance, and Terry showed no concern at all. He even mocked her and the rest of Kim's family. His employees added another layer of concern. One recalled seeing Kim's car parked at Terry's house around 5:50 p.m. on the day she vanished, contradicting Terry's claim that she only stayed for a few minutes. Later, multiple witnesses reported spotting Terry's tow truck near the pharmacy parking lot around 6:45 p.m., the same place Kim's car was later found. His supposed alibi didn't hold up. Even so, police lacked physical proof. Terry's behavior grew more alarming. He once told Kim's sister he was going to take a polygraph test, then casually added, "I'll probably fail it." He called the family now and then, pretending to check in, asking if they'd heard from Kim, as if she had simply taken a trip. Anonymous, silent phone calls plagued the family for years, which they believed came from Terry. 3 years after Kim disappeared, he approached Tiffany on the street and brought up the polygraph again, taunting her with a chilling comment. "Want to know which question I failed? It was the one about whether I killed your mom." Despite this, police still couldn't pin anything on him. The case went cold. 8 years later, detectives revisited it, starting from scratch. But Terry had stopped cooperating and refused to talk further. Then came a turning point. In early 2024, the Oxygen True Crime team began working on a documentary about Kim's case. They re-interviewed everyone, family, friends, and the suspects. Frank agreed to speak but stuck to his old denials, refusing to admit to anything, even the letters. Terry, however, refused to cooperate, so the crew paid him a surprise visit. Upon seeing them through a window, he fled out the back door and jumped into his car, attempting to drive away. The crew blocked his path. Cornered, Terry said he wasn't trying to flee and insisted once again that he had no reason to harm Kim. But his story had changed. He now claimed Kim came by to pick up belongings, not to help with shelves, as he had said before. That inconsistency caught investigators' attention. The case was reopened. Shortly after the documentary aired, prosecutors began preparing to charge Terry with murder. They still didn't have direct physical evidence, but public interest had rekindled momentum. Then came the breakthrough no one saw coming. A witness stepped forward. He said that Terry had once confessed to killing his ex-girlfriend and burying her on his property. With this revelation, police finally secured a warrant to search Terry's land, this time determined to uncover the truth once and for all. For several days, teams of searchers scoured the property using advanced ground-penetrating radar technology. Eventually, they uncovered something critical, a suspicious section beneath the concrete floor of Terry's bedroom, roughly the size of a human body. What stood out was that the rebar in that specific area had been cut away, even though the rest of the foundation was fully reinforced. Investigators began to excavate, and before long, they unearthed a blanket, buried deep beneath the surface. Inside it were human remains. Forensic experts were called in, and soon, the truth was confirmed. The remains were Kim's own. Terry was immediately taken into custody and charged with murder. With Kim's body discovered directly beneath his room, prosecutors finally had the physical evidence they'd long been missing, enough to confidently move toward a conviction. As of now, Terry, who is 67 years old, remains in custody, awaiting trial in the spring of 2025. In addition to the criminal proceedings, Kim's daughter has filed a civil lawsuit against him, aiming not only for justice but also to prevent him from using financial resources to fund his legal defense. Following Terry's arrest, serious questions were raised about the initial investigation. Kim had reportedly told close friends that if anything ever happened to her, they should check Terry's property. And remarkably, 25 years later, that's exactly where her remains were found. It still isn't clear why authorities failed to search the house and surrounding land thoroughly at the time. Perhaps they did examine the yard, but found no signs of disturbed soil. It's also uncertain when Terry hid her body beneath the bedroom. He may have initially stashed her elsewhere and moved her later after police wrapped up their initial search. Whatever the case, it now seems unlikely that Terry will avoid accountability, and at long last, Kim's loved ones have been able to lay her to rest with dignity.